Hi, I'm Edward Carter, the Vicar at St Peter Mancroft Church in Norwich, and I'm hunkered down here in my house, in my study, during the COVID-19 virus. And although it's a shame not to be able to get out and about so much, it's actually given me an opportunity to read some old favourite books and also to watch some old favourite movies. And I wanted just to share for a few moments some thoughts and my appreciation really of a movie called The Matrix. Maybe you've heard of it and seen it. Others know much more about the movie than me, and if you want a definitive run through of the story and all of that, there'll be other places to look. But The Matrix, I believe, has some really interesting resonances with spiritual matters, and I just wanted to speak for a moment or two about that. The Matrix came out in 1999, so it's been around for a few years, and in that sense it's slightly dated, I suppose. But it was a very influential movie made by the Wachowski brothers, and starring some quite well-known actors. But the main character in the movie, which is a kind of dystopian world movie, science fiction, although it slightly escapes being put into too much of a pigeonhole as a movie, because it's got so many different strands. But the main character is a man called Thomas Anderson, but he has another name which is Neo. And his two names reflect the fact that in the movie The Matrix there are two parallel existences, and that's really the heart, the conceptual heart of the movie. So Thomas Anderson has this he's a computer programmer, and he has this niggling doubt in his mind, more than a niggling doubt, that there's more to life than immediately meets the eye. And he's got this in his head, and then some people make contact with him. He doesn't really know who they are. One of them is called Morpheus, who's a well-known character, slightly mysterious character. Anyway, so to cut a bit of a long story short, he links up with these other people. There's another one called Trinity, and another group of them as well. Links up with these characters, and they say to him, yes, there is more to life and to existence than first meets the eye. Would you like to know more about it? And he isn't sure. And Morpheus, who's kind of offering him this opportunity, holds out two different coloured pills, very visual moment in the film, a red pill and a blue pill. And if to choose one of those just means, I'll tell you what, I don't want to know about anything more than what's in front of me. I'm happy kind of living in ignorance. And then the other pill, however, will open Neo's mind to something different about life. And Neo, of course, makes the decision that he does want to know more. So he takes the pill and sort of makes that moment of decision to do that. There's a very striking moment in the film. And the result of that is this extraordinary scene in the movie where a human body that seems to be in some kind of pod is released from this pod. All the connections that are wired into it gradually pop out, and a funny machine comes and kind of looks at this pod and this human body within it that's malfunctioned. And by the way, you notice there are thousands, millions of others of these all around in this enormous great space. And the machine metaphorically kind of shakes its head and says, oh, well, that one's useless then, and pulls the plug. And this human body, which is Neo, goes down the chute, and I can only say is baptized. Out this body drops from a chute and is plunged under the water, and up comes Neo. So what's happening, and it's a little bit confusing, but the film explains it very well, is that all the characters in the movie have a real physical body, the real them. But alongside that, there's a sort of computer projection world that their mind is plugged into, and in which they live. And the computer projected world looks and feels very much like what we think the world is. Particularly, it's set in New York, parts of it. And so you see a busy New York with lots of people rushing around doing the things that they do. But what Neo reveals to us in the way the film works is that actually that's just an illusion. That's not the real life. The real life is something else. It turns out that the machines were involved, artificial intelligence involved in a great war with humanity, if you go back a number of years from when the film is set. And as a result of that war, the machines somehow pretty much won that conflict, and have put all the human beings into a kind of slavery. They just use the human beings as like a battery for heat and energy and power. And to keep these human batteries amused and occupied, they plug their minds into a made-up world. And the name of that computer world is The Matrix, hence the name of the film. So that's the kind of backdrop to the movie. There are lots of amazing action scenes, and that's what some people love the film for, drawing on influences from the Far East, some amazing karate moves and that kind of thing, and very innovative use of action scenes. So that's part of it. It's quite a violent film at times as well, a bit of quite a lot of shooting and some bad language, all of that, because it is a kind of rough, but it presents itself as that kind of film, of course, to make it seem real. But you've got this underlying picture, really, of the two parallel existences. And then there are forces working within the matrix to try and keep this illusion up. And leading amongst those forces are the agents. So Agent Smith. They have a sort of generic name, Agent Smith, and there are 3 in the movie, but in fact there are probably lots. There are lots. So Agent Smith and Agent Smith and Agent Smith, and they're part of the matrix, they're part of the program, and they can pop up in different ways because they manipulate the code of the matrix in order to squash any of these thoughts that people like Morpheus and then Neo and Trinity and the others have, to push back against the power of the matrix, the sort of dulling power of the matrix, this illusion that people live in. There are some pretty overt references, I would say, to the Bible and to Christianity. I've mentioned about the baptism moment. That maybe is a little bit obscure, but the free city where people live who are not bound by the matrix is called Zion. Morpheus's ship is Nebuchadnezzar. Well, that's a biblical reference as well. And there are some other moments where Neo, the letters Neo, as some have observed, is sort of rearranged of one, the one, and he's referred to as the one throughout the movie. He's the kind of Messiah figure. Is he the one who can break the power of the matrix? And in a way, the culminating moment of the film is when Neo is in the matrix and he's up against these agents, and the agents get the better of him and kill him. And so in the Matrix he's dead, and his body out of the Matrix, because the two are linked, also dies, with Trinity and Morpheus sort of watching this happen. And Trinity has been told that she will fall in love with a dead man, and she's found that to be true with Neo. So she goes and kisses this dead body, and then Neo comes back to life. We would say, as Christians, that's the resurrection moment, when the power of death, the power of sin, the power of the matrix in the movie is overcome through what? Through the power of love, through the power of the Trinity. Again, Trinity is a very Christian reference. So for me, I love the movie because it's visually very strong. I love the action as well. I love the characters, they're very well presented. But I do love that spiritual undergirding actually of the world as described by the Matrix, because my Christian faith actually draws significantly upon the core Christian teaching that this world is real and part of reality, but it's not the only part of reality. There is, as it were, a kind of another bit of reality, in fact a much more significant, even more real bit of reality, which is used, which in the Bible is referred to as the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, perhaps the heavenly places. And the scriptures really set out an account of how this other place, how God's kingdom, the kingdom of heaven, is connected to this earth, and how they're related, closely related often, but very different and very distinct as well. And how in Jesus Christ, the two are joined together, they're bound together because of what Jesus taught and represented and did, how he lived, everything about him. We see that the kingdom of God is not some unrelated idea to this earth. It's actually woven into the fabric of this earth. But we so often overlook it. We are blinded, a bit like the characters in the fictional movie The Matrix. They're blind to the reality, the real thing. And as Christians, I believe we need to remind the world, remind ourselves first, but remind the world constantly of this other powerful reality, not over and against the world, but woven into the world, and there to redeem the world, to free people from the slavery which they find themselves in biblical terms, the slavery of sin, the slavery really of spiritual blindness, not seeing the world as God's world, not seeing our lives as lives to be lived under God. So I do commend the movie to you. If you've not seen it, it's worth a watch. And I would recommend enjoying seeing it as a kind of spiritual parable as well.